right, thanks for coming today. We hope this can be a useful seminar for you. We have inspectors from 3 of the 4 cities right now. We're hoping that our 4th inspector shows up. But I wanted to introduce each of the inspectors and have them just give a little overview of kind of their city and their inspections department, what they do, and kind of common kind of projects that they see going on. So we'll start with Dan from Golden Valley.
I'm Dan with Golden Valley Inspections. We do a lot of residential remodels, basement frames, bathrooms, additions. We got a lot of commercial in the area as well that spends a lot of time taking a look at.
All right, Hopkins is not here at the moment, but let's go to Kevin from Minnetonka.
I'm a building inspector in Minnetonka. Minnetonka is about 50,000 people. We're super busy in the apartment buildings, condo buildings. We've got a lot going on in Minnetonka that way. Besides, our residential never seems to stop. I think we're recession-proof. People seem to build regardless of the recession, inflation, economy. We're staying real busy.
And then St. Louis Park. Both Dave and Grant are here from St. Louis Park.
Okay, I'll just give you a little history here at St. Louis Park. City of St. Louis Park Inspections Department employs 21 full-time staff members, including inspectors and specialties in building, housing codes, as well as service technicians and administrators. The department's responsible for issuing construction permits, inspecting new constructions, remodel projects, compliance for building, plumbing, mechanical, electrical systems, and the state Minnesota building code. Last year we did 26,513 inspections throughout the city of St. Louis Park, and typically our projects are remodels, additions, decks. We probably do about 10 to 15 new homes a year, but there seems to be a real big focus for apartment buildings still in St. Louis Park, with several projects underway right now and several slated for 2018.
All right, thanks. So the point of our seminar today is really to give you a chance to hear kind of common mistakes, pitfalls to avoid as you are contemplating a home remodel project. So we've had each of the cities kind of give their top 5 things. We've tried to make them different from city to city, so you get a wide view of what kind of issues come up and things you may be able to do to avoid them. Because what we want is less of this, issues with your home renovations, and more of this. We want success. We want you guys to be able to tackle your projects and not make those mistakes. One thing we want to put out is a disclaimer. You should always check with your own city's inspections department for any kind of requirements for permitting or any kind of work. The building code is there to ensure safety. And the code is broad, but different cities may interpret it slightly differently, so always check with your city before you make any assumptions. We have city staff down at the booth in the back of the home remodeling fair, so feel free to stop in and talk with them if you have more questions after our session today. So we're going to start with tip 1. This comes from Golden Valley, and it's about having your property line staked and streamlined so you can verify the setback of your foundation. I'm going to ask each of the inspectors to kind of take a minute or so just to explain what this means and kind of why it might be important. Dan.
Typically this one's for additions, some decks. You don't want to anger your neighbors, putting something too close to their property. Start a feud that way. That's about it.
I know it's commonly something we see on the planning and zoning side of things. People always want to be aware of where their side and front and rear setbacks are, so you don't accidentally build into it because it's really expensive to have to fix that after the fact.
How do you get those staked?
So first of all, contacting your city planning department will tell you what the distance should be, and then often it's having to find that property line and measure back from.
Yeah, usually there's irons at the corners. Sometimes they're locatable. Sometimes you got to rent a metal detector.
Sometimes cities will have a survey on file that you can reference. Worst case, you may have to get a survey or a partial survey done to really verify where those lines are. Someone doing that exact thing, marking out where their foundation is going to go. Tip number 2 is from Hopkins. Hopkins isn't here, so if anyone wants to chime in, I'll just read through it here. At least in Hopkins, it required the contractor to post their building permit inspection card in a very noticeable exterior place. This shows that the contractor has paid for the permit and reduces the number of calls that any neighbors might make if they're wondering what's going on. Sounds like it's probably something that's common for each city, trying to cut down on questions and complaints by putting some kind of notice on site.
Well, it helps with notifying your neighbors that you are doing a construction project, and the person that's doing it actually obtained permits and went through the process of doing the right thing before, before they actually do the work. Also, just common courtesy that they post out there for the inspector to come out and sign, and it's good record keeping for them as well.
We get calls all the time in Minnetonka from neighbors that are asking if their neighbors have a building permit. And they're probably our biggest advocate of catching folks that are building without a permit, if they're curious neighbors, turn them in.
I know from working in the zoning department, we often get calls, and when we work with someone, we often encourage them, just go across to your neighbor, let them know there's something going on, especially if it's going to be loud or really obnoxious. We have a dumpster sitting out in your yard for a while. Just good neighborly communication always helps the project go more smoothly. Tip number 3 is from Minnetonka, about deck projects. If the deck is over 4 feet off the ground, Minnetonka would only require footing inspection and final inspection. Want to talk about that?
On this one, we're trying to save a trip out for us, and we're trying to not slow you down when you're doing a deck. So if a deck is this high off the ground, we can inspect it. We can come out one time and look at it. We can see all the framing, and sometimes we can see the footings if you use like a diamond pure footing. So if the next slide shows a lower deck. Okay. So if the deck is too low, we can't see the framing underneath it, so we ask that you call for an intermediate inspection so we can see the framing before you put the decking on.
Tip number 4, St. Louis Park. If anyone's from St. Louis Park, you may have heard of the point of sale program. Open permits need to be closed before a home can be sold. Any work not done with a permit that's found during point of sale inspection has to be addressed. Maybe you can explain what that program is and why it exists.
Well, the program exists, and in order to sell your home in St. Louis Park, prior to listing it, you need to have a point of sale, which ensures our housing stock is held at a high level. When they come through, they're looking for deficiencies in the home, outlets not functioning, paint peeling off the house. They want to make sure that the new homeowner that's buying this house is not going to have major problems right up front when they move in. So, I mean, when you move into a new home, you're really not anticipating a huge expense such as a furnace or major electrical problems. So we go through and kind of test all the outlets, make sure that there's no rotted wood on the house that the new homeowner would have to deal with right away. I mean, they've already spent a ton of money trying to get financing for this home, so we're trying to help them as much as we can, not have some unseen expenses when they buy this house.
Could you also talk for a minute about checking for open permits and what that means and how it might impact the homeowner?
Prior to the sale of the house, all the open permits will need to be closed off, and if there's any corrections, will have to be corrected prior to the sale of the house. And then also we look and see if there's work done without permits. Basement remodels are real common where a lot of people don't think they need permits for remodels of basements and putting bathrooms in. That's something we see a lot of. So we really look at all of that type of work and make sure it's done correctly. So again, the new homeowner doesn't have that expense of finding a whole bunch of things wrong.
Thanks. Tip number 5, from Golden Valley, all required footing and foundation reinforcing must be in place and not in contact with the ground or the formwork. Dan, you want to talk about this for a second?
Yeah, typically footings call for reinforcing from architect, engineer, somebody. They have to be in place. They can't be placed later when the contractors start to pour the concrete. They don't allow what is called wet stabbing. So it has to be in place, chaired up, or tie wired up, and clear all clearances that are required. if they don't have this, they just expect to pull the truck up, start pouring, and start laying their reinforcement. It's not allowed.
So Dan, do you have to go out and inspect for that before the concrete is poured?
Yep, it should. Well, if you had something like this is what it would look like prior to pouring. Everything would be laid out, chaired up, ready to go.
Tip number 6 is from Hopkins, so if anyone wants to chime in. This is kind of the planning stage. Thoroughly discuss the project schedule with your contractor. What happens if the design change is made by the homeowner or a material is out of stock? The kind of things you should be thinking about as you're ready to start a project. Maybe that speaks for itself. I don't know if anyone has any comments on that. In almost every home remodel project, something happens to kind of delay or change plans midstream. So talk that through with whoever you're working with so you can kind of anticipate those and how you're going to handle it. Tip number 7 from Minnetonka. Homeowners need to update smoke detectors and CO monitors per code.
So every time a permit's pulled in Minnetonka building permit, we require the smokes and CO detectors to be updated. It's a life safety issue. Personally, I lost my father-in-law to a house fire. He died of smoke inhalation because the smoke detectors, I think he had one in his whole house. So he stood up in the fire, he hit the smoke, back down he went, and passed away. So I take this one to heart mostly because I've lost somebody close. So we look for smoke detectors in all the bedrooms and one on every level, and we look for a carbon monoxide detector within 10 feet of any bedrooms.
And what kind of work triggers that review?
Well, it's pretty vague. Our code book says any permit, but I think any building permit. So if you're pulling a permit to put windows in or remodel your bathroom or even some of the smallest permits, we still require you to update all your smokes and seals throughout in the whole house. In every bedroom. That way if the door is closed in the bedroom and the fire's in the bedroom, something's sounding off before that smoke makes it out into the rest of the house. That's a code.
Tip number 8 from St. Louis Park, use a licensed contractor. If they are required to pull their own permits, but the homeowner is ultimately responsible for the remodel. And there's some handouts in the back. I guess at least one of those handouts addresses this quite specifically.
The home building and remodeling, the one that's from the Attorney General, this is available online as well. And it gives some good pointers on why you should hire a licensed contractor. It just gives you some recourse with the contractor recovery fund if something goes wrong, I guess. And don't, some contractors, even though they're licensed, will ask you to pull permits for them. That's not allowed, so that's a good tip not to do. They could be licensed but still ask you for whatever reason to pull the permits. I don't know why they do that.
Are the homeowner doing their own work, pulls their own permits?
Yeah, we actually have a slide coming up on that as well. So
But if you do hire a licensed contractor, check their license through the state of Minnesota. It's always good to see if there's complaints with them to the Department of Labor and Industry, and make sure that they are a licensed contractor. There's quite a few contractors out there that will actually have you, well, I can save you some money if you pull your own permit. That's, to me, that's kind of a scam, and it puts the onus back to you, because all the corrections go right directly to the homeowner, not the contractor. So if he chooses not to complete the project, well, then it's all back to the homeowner again. So that's why we recommend using a licensed contractor for that.
we write the correction if there is one to whoever is listed on the permit.
Tip number 9 for Golden Valley, proper nails need to be used per the manufacturer's specifications for mechanical fasteners such as hangers, lateral bracing in proper locations for any deck over 30 inches from grade.
Some of the mechanical or the hanger companies don't allow certain lengths of nails because they end up pulling away a lot of decks. Some of them are falling off because they're not using the right fasteners. That's a pretty common thing that we find. We have them pull a nail out, and if it's short, then they all have to be pulled out. Or kind of ties. There's a few different ways we allow that to happen. They have some mechanical ones that fasten to the house, some go through the house. And we also allow some type of lateral bracing with some woodwork underneath, running at a 45 or some dog ears and some posts. Keeps the deck from shifting and racking and eventually falling off the house.
Tip number 10, this comes from Hopkins. Contact the city inspections department when plan changes occur. And that's excluding changes to finishes. I'm not sure if other cities have the same kind of recommendation or requirements.
We do. We require an as-built to start changing stuff midstream. We've approved a permit. We've approved a plan already. And if things start to change, we just want to know at the end of the day what the finished product is going to be. And 10 years from now, when we look back, we can make sure that there's documentation of the changes.
If something changes midstream and it's suddenly shifting away from what the code requires, you want to catch it right away.
Absolutely.
Tip 11 from Minnetonka, make sure your contractor has an approved final inspection before final payment is made to them. Make the final payment after the permit is closed.
We've had this happen a lot where the homeowner has called and says, my contractor didn't finish the project, but I paid him in full. Or if we find their permit still open a year later or 6 months later, and they assume that the permit was closed out by their contractor, and since they paid them, they figure everything is good. Well, half the time it's not. So we just kind of warn them. There's good contractors out there, believe me, but there's some contractors that just want to get paid and move on. So just be leery of, make sure your contractor is done and the permit is closed out. The only leverage you have with them is your checkbook.
St. Louis Park, tip 12. Permits are needed for these projects. And rather than read through that, maybe just have you guys explain what kind of projects do need permits. I see there's a handout to go with.
There's a handout, and it's a short list, very short. So if your project is not on this list, it requires a permit per the code. It's pretty much renovations, repairs. Like I said, it's a short list of things that do not require a permit. There's a handout in the back that you can kind of go over and take a look at a few projects on there. But in the scope of things, probably like 95% of your projects.
Would you say if you're in doubt, call the city and ask?
Yeah, absolutely. Give us a call. Ask us if you're the permit techs who answer the phone at the front desk. They're fully aware of what's required and what's not. And if there's something that's questionable, they'll just ask an inspector.
13, from Golden Valley, at the time of installation inspections, poly must be in place if you're using poly. Dan?
Yeah, pretty explanatory, I guess. If you're insulating and there's poly, it's got to be on. We're not going to take your word that it's going to go on once you put rock on. It has to be there at the time of inspection. Sealed, any rips, tears, got to be covered, taped somehow.
All right. From Hopkins, tip 14, contact the city zoning department if you're considering remodeling for an investment property. Understand the rental licensing in your city. I'm assuming other cities have this question come up as well. In Golden Valley has a rental license program, and knowing what kind of homes can be rented out and what the process are and what inspections are needed, definitely want to talk to your city officials before undertaking something like that. Minnetonka, tip 15, the sequence of inspections is important. Listed here, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing inspections first, then framing. Same sequence for final inspection. The building final is the last step.
We struggle with this, or homeowners struggle with this because they want us to come out and do their building inspection and their electrical and plumbing haven't been done yet. We want to be the last ones out there to make sure that, your plumber and electrician have permits and the work was done and inspected. and B, that the plumbers and electricians haven't drilled through all your new studs and made a mess of perfectly good framing. So we want to be last in the sequence as building inspectors. We want your plumbing, electrical, mechanical to be done first. Even with when you get to your final inspection, the building inspection will be done last, and we kind of make sure that everybody's been through and done their due diligence for inspections.
Tip 16 from St. Louis Park. Some advice on how to find a contractor. There's some references here and also a handout. And then beyond just finding a contractor, how to make sure you find a good contractor. Things like reference checks, any listed fines against the contractors, etc.
Yeah, you can actually go to the Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry, and it is public knowledge whether a contractor has had some kind of fine against them for what reason. There is a handout from the Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry as well, finding a good residential contractor. A couple of key tips is sign a contract with somebody. It's a specific scope of work that helps out a lot for both you and them. That way, if they think they're fulfilling the contract and you don't, you guys can go back to that, and it should say right there what you guys agreed to, and so on and so forth. And take progress pictures. Take pictures of the project as it goes along. We get calls all the time, and we go out on consultations to look at stuff that homeowners or contractors have questions on. And if something's covered up that we can't see, sometimes a picture can solve a lot of issues. So take progress pictures. It doesn't hurt anybody to do that.
Tip 17 from Golden Valley. Radon mitigation is not required on additions unless the existing home already has one, but testing of radon is suggested. Dan, you want to take a moment to talk about radon?
Yeah, we've gotten a few calls from residents saying that their contractors tell them they have to put a radon in an addition, and they don't have to unless the existing house already has one. You don't have to. We recommend just getting it tested in case the levels are pretty high.
And we have actually a booth here today back in the Idea Center. Talks about radon, also has radon test kits. So if you have any questions, I encourage you to visit that booth and talk to the specialist back there. I think radon is required for new homes. Is that correct? Tip 18 from Hopkins. If your start date is critical, contact the city inspections department in advance to understand plan review wait time. I'm sure this is an issue for all the cities. People always want to know how long it's going to take. They tend to not anticipate all the review time that goes in before they can actually start digging or start working.
Well, a lot of times it comes down to how good are your plans that are submitted to the city. Typically, St. Louis Park for remodels, it's 3 to 5 days for a plan review, and that's after our zoning department's looked at it. So there's that little bit of lead time as well in there for zoning to approve any type of additions or outdoor structures that are going to be added onto the house. So.
It says 3 to 5 is in Park. Is that a typical time frame for some of the other cities, you say?
We started electronic plan review in Minnetonka. It's really sped up the plan review process. Right now, I think we have 0 plans ready to be looked at. We're caught up. Commercially, residentially, yeah, you can get it back in less than a week, depending upon if the planning and zoning folks have a problem with setbacks and so forth.
Yeah, obviously, depending on how many different departments are involved, that can add time to finance involved, or there's some kind of stormwater work with grading machines, etc. So, start early if you have a critical date that you want to get started by.
And the more detail you add to your plan, the easier it is and the faster it goes.
Tip 19 for Minnetonka. Homeowners need to have their permits and plans available or printed out for all inspectors.
Again, we started electronic plan review now last year where you do everything online. You don't have to bring your plans in physically over the counter. So You submit your plans to us, we do our plan review, and then we send them back to you via email, and we ask that you print those out so we have something on site to follow. I think that's the reason for that note.
Golden Valley is moving towards electronic plan review. I don't know if St. Louis Park is there yet, or are you moving in that direction?
St. Louis Park is right on the verge, so hopefully late spring we'll be accepting electronic plan review for residential. We've already have been for commercial plans, so they were just going to take the next step because we're finding the amount of paper that we get submitted for, especially for commercial, are somewhere around 3,000 pages, 30 by 48, for a commercial project. So residential, they'll be able to do it from their own home and submit it to the city without even coming there. So it'll be a benefit to our city residents for that.
I guess our final tip from St. Louis Park, homeowners can obtain permits for doing the work if they're doing the work themselves, and we can hand out 20 tips for remodeling.
Also, we highly recommend doing a consultation if you have questions at all about your remodel before you start work or even during the work process. We would rather have you set up a consultation inspection where we're not coming out to do an actual inspection, but we're just coming out to talk to you, look at it, answer any questions that you have. A lot of people will use this, take advantage of this to make sure that they are headed in the right direction. They might get into a project and with the age of the home come across a lot of things that they didn't expect and might have got into something that they're not comfortable doing. So they'll call us and, rather than try and answer a question over the phone, we'll just go out there and do a consultation.
That helps too because, the project is done right. We as inspectors, I'd rather have the project done correctly instead of writing corrections. It just makes it that much easier to come out and we can look at it, pass it. And we've been out there and done that consultation. We know what the expectations are, what's needed to be submitted, how it needs to be done. So it helps for both parties involved for this project.
All right, those were the 20 tips that we had prepared. Again, I'll flash this disclaimer that your city interpretation of building code is always important. So if you're considering a project, talk specifically to your city department. But at this point, we want to open it up and see if people have questions. And I'd say if you have questions, identify which city you're in or where the project would be, so we can put you in touch with the right inspector, because there's always those slight differences in interpretation. So does anyone have a specific question to ask any of our building inspectors right now? Yeah.
Okay, just because I would probably just sat down, but the Minnetonka, and then the bedrooms, and where else are the?
Smoke detector? Every bedroom and one smoke detector on every level. So typically we see them in the hallways outside the bedrooms. And then the carbon monoxide detectors, they detect the carbon monoxide from gas-fired appliances. So you would think you would need one in your basement where all your furnace and stuff is, but they want them. The code wants the carbon monoxide detectors within 10 feet of any bedroom, but not in the bedroom. So typically we see a combination smoke detector, carbon monoxide detector, hanging in the hallway outside the bedrooms. That way it's going to detect either smoke or carbon monoxide and hopefully save some lives before it gets into those people sleeping. It's protecting your family while you're sleeping typically, because when you're awake you're going to see or smell the fire. When you're sleeping it catches you off guard.
Other questions? Yeah.
In Golden Valley, our deck, I don't know when exactly it was built in the 70s, it needed a variance, and it's only maybe 5 feet from the neighbor's property. It desperately needs to be replaced. Do you have to reapply for the variance or go through any of that process again when you do that?
You're talking to the right person. Variances in Golden Valley, you can replace, kind of maintain that deck if it has a variance. What you can't do is make it any bigger without going back to get a new variance for that bigger deck. So if you're keeping it same footprint, same shape, but you need to replace it, that's okay.
And would that same shape include a new exit from the other side of the deck?
We're mostly concerned about where it extends into that setback. So as long as you're not coming any closer, you're not making it wider. If you're doing something on the other side, which is within kind of the usual building envelope, that's okay.
Great, thank you.
Other questions? Have captive audience. Go ahead.
St. Louis Park, I'm really looking just for reassurance here. I spoke to someone several months ago, and they said it's not a problem. I'm about to purchase a condo that's a mirror image of mine with your common wall and expand it. And it involves removing a section of a wall that is, I don't know the language, but weight-bearing, structural. And I was told as long as it's up to code, they don't have a problem per se with combining the condos, and that it is possible to do it correctly under, with that condition. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's possible, yes, absolutely. You would, not only though, with it being you're gonna combine them, I suppose.
Well,
Fire separation.
Yeah, the firewall.
Yeah.
Still the same.
Yeah. You'll have a header of some kind that'll carry the weight, that's existing, over your new opening.
Depends on where it's located. If you're holding up like 2 more floors, then you may have to get a structural engineer involved.
On a condo, we'll probably ask for that, no matter
Yeah.
what. Yeah.
It is the top floor, I don't
Okay.
know, but I know that there's still issues there.
Yeah. Being that it's, multi-family, so to speak, there's other people involved, I don't know that any of our inspectors will not ask for a structural engineer's letter. So keep that in mind when you apply. Because if you apply without it, we'll ask for it, and then if, you have a hard time getting hold of a structural engineer to come out, that can cut into your time frame. So plan, that's one thing, planning accordingly. Know now that you have to have a structural engineer come give you a letter saying, this is the requirements to carry the loads that are there, and turn that in with your application.
Other questions? Yeah.
Well, I probably already talked to Dean in St. Louis Park towards Europe about that, about putting in retrofitting an interior drain tile system, whether I need a permit or not, and I think I was told yes.
Yes.
Because it's not this part. So yes, I need a permit. Tell me, I'm so naive, I haven't had work done. Once you get a permit, tell me when someone comes in to inspect it or sign off on it, or what?
During that process for a drain tile system, when they cut the floor open and they have the drain tile system in there, we'll come and look at that part of it to make sure that it's put in correctly and that it goes to the sump basket the way it's supposed to. And then when they are all complete with the project, we'll do the final inspection as well.
So 2 steps.
2 steps. And your contractor, they all are,
They don't start putting the cement in.
correct.
And then I might also have like the walls draped in plastic.
Yes, that's all part of the drain tile system.
That'll be the first step.
Yes, yep. What we consider a roughing inspection, it's called.
Other questions for our inspectors?
What was going on downstairs?
Sure.
I don't know if you spoke about outdoor like ponds, for example. All of our property was landscaped before there were curbs. When the curbs were put in, all the water pretty much goes into one spot and just sits in the grass. And we'd like to turn that into a pond. Are there permits necessary for that? And is there requirements about how deep it could be? Kids? It's not going to be a fenced-in area.
Sure, so there's 2 things to think about. One, I'm not sure about kind of fencing and what triggers some kind of protection from that. But I know in terms of you're doing grading changes and redirecting water and kind of messing with that. We have a stormwater technician on staff. They're a good resource to contact. In Golden Valley has a lot of wet areas, and people are always worried about what's my neighbor doing that's going to impact my property, or hopefully what I'm doing it might impact my neighbors. And they can come out and help, look at your site, give you advice about whether it's swales or drainage, talking about turning a low spot into a pond or kind of a wetland area. So that's where I'd start, and then I don't know if there's any kind of code requirements, safety requirements around.
I don't know around the pond with any area like that.
If it's a deep enough pond or you are concerned, sometimes something you might want to think about. But requirements.
Yeah, as I was thinking about this, it occurred to me that we have a lot of kids in the neighborhood, and it's a sort of, setback neighborhood, and they're always coming to play on the swing and going fair. It just dawned on me recently that that's something I should think about. So, thank you.
Anyone else? If not, don't forget, inspectors or other city staff will be back in the IDEA Center. There's some exhibits back there, handouts and things. If you have specific questions that dawn on you later in the day, stop back and check that out. There's also the Ask the Pros section where you can talk to an architect or a landscape architect or someone else about specific questions about your house, and they can maybe give you 10 or 15 minutes of free advice. So thanks for coming. We will probably be around for a few minutes if anything dawns on you, but thank you to our panel for coming out this morning.